knows why? Because life goes on. And in our study of Life Goes On, we are learning that Evelina and Ernesto are working non-stop, tirelessly to unite both of their families, and they were granted 30 years to do so. And today we will see a pivotal moment in their plan to construct fraternity and unity. So buckle up, everybody. It's going to be beautiful. You may need tissues, just a little fair warning. And to get us started, we are going to call on Sunshine, always shining from coast to coast, to help us with a beautiful opening prayer. Hello, Sunshine.
Hello, Carol. Thank you so much. It is a beautiful day, and I invite everyone, if you can, to please close your eyes and let us open our hearts and minds, connecting with divine providence and Jesus and all the healing doctors and mentor spirits that are present as part of the group, as well as our own personal mentors and spirit helpers. It is with immense gratitude that we are receiving the gift of today's gathering and studying this beautiful book, learning from Evelina in particular today, understanding that the messages are exactly for us, and we are invited to understand and incorporate what we're learning today so that we can become more Christ conscious in our everyday life. And with this, we humbly ask for permission to begin today's study. And so be it.
So be it. Sunshine, would you like to guide us in our adventure for the soul today?
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Sunshine.
We are on at chapter 25 on page 217 in Life Goes On. It's called A New Direction. After checking Desiderio and Elisa into a hospital with the help of kind assistants, Ernesto and Evelina returned on the afternoon of that same day to Sao Paulo, eager to check on Vera's reaction to the new situation. Informed as to the future, when Vera's participation and collaboration would be of the utmost importance for their peace of mind, Ernesto and Evelina understood their role was to support her with even more warmth and tenderness. Desiderio's surrender to the renewing ideals they both shared was another crucial point in their work plan, and they hoped to readjust Caio's attitudes in order to provide them with a more propitious area of action. They found Vera Celina weeping with grief, supported by friends and family. A taciturn Caio had taken over, giving orders in the household. Once the funeral procession got underway, the two discarnate visitors, as well as many other friends from the higher spheres of spirituality, settled into the family car next to Vera. When they arrived at the cemetery, Ernesto supported his daughter, while Evelina accompanied her ex-husband, who seemed to have fixed his attention on another grave, near the one where Fancini's widow's remains would be buried. Serpa did this deliberately. He didn't want to watch the burial. Fully perceiving the influence of the wife he had buried, a little more than 2 years ago, he remembered Evelina, and without meaning to, he saw her image on the screen of his memory. Not far from him, Vera was weeping in the arms of her friends, while he was gloomily ruminating. He remembered when he had left his wife in another cemetery, the Quarta Parada. He recalled her departure, the details of what had happened. That too had been at sunset, just like today in Villa Mariana, and the same unanswered questions came to his mind. Did life really end under piles of stone and ash? Where did the dead go in the event that there actually was life after death? Where were the parents he had lost in his youth? Where was Evelina, the wife he had loved so much in the early days of his youth, and whom illness and death had taken from him? As he remembered her, he felt connected to another painful memory, Tullio Mancini. His heart felt constricted, and he asked himself how he could have given in to the madness of murdering his colleague. The crime surfaced in his memory in all details. Serpa tried to rid himself of these thoughts as they came to mind, but he felt incomprehensibly hooked to the past. He couldn't perceive Evelina right there next to him as she guided him to wake up to the truth. Carol, shall we pause?
Yes, we shall. Please, sunshine.
Yeah. So we're encountering Caio, who is perceiving and focused on his former wife. What's her name?
Evelina.
No, it's not Evelina. Yeah, it's Evelina, of course.
Evelina,
Sorry.
yes.
Yes,
No problem.
Oh, it's a former wife, Evelina. And so what comes to mind for us is, again, how much are we influenced by spirits? Because Evelina is standing right next to him, and he is not really experiencing her next to him, but her thoughts are assimilated by his mind.
Right.
And we do know from the spirits on high that we are more influenced by spirits than we actually are aware of. So that being a fact, the question is, how can we actually distinguish between thoughts that come from spirits and our own thoughts? It's something that right now Caio is not thinking about, but that's something we're wondering. And of course, Alan Kardec had that thought, like always, right? He's perpetually reading our minds. And the answer from the spirits is really that primarily when we hear a voice, that comes from a spirit. And furthermore, there is a hint from the spirits on high that the first thought might actually be our own more reliably. But at the same time, and this is question 461, but then in 464, Alan Kardec is belaboring the point a little bit more. And then the spirits say, well, if God really wanted you to be clear on what your thought is and the spirits, then he, she, it would have made it clear. So don't focus too much on it. But it's just kind of like a little bit of a hint for us. So the first thought might very well be our own. And when we hear a voice, that will most likely come from a spirit. And then, of course, the question is, what kind of spirit is the thought coming from, right? So how can we know? And then the spirits help us understand that we need to study the thought. We have to look into it. We have to see, is the thought only good for me, for example? Or does it actually reach out and help others as well? Then we can pretty well say, okay, good. This is coming from a higher source than a lower spirit. So we're really invited to use our discernment in the message, in the voices we hear. Now, this kind of phenomena, Emmanuel calls suggestion. The phenomena of us being influenced by the spirits pretty much all day long. And it is very super common. It happens all the time. It happens from in discarnated spirits, but it also happens from us incarnates, right? I mean, we switch on the news and there is like every channel is feeding us pretty much the same information. There's actually on YouTube, you can listen to a presentation showing all the like 20 or 30 different TV channels, all using the same verbiage, actually. So it is really important for us in everyday life. Also, of course, with products, right? You sometimes you only think about a product and it pops up on Facebook as an advertisement, right? It's just like, so it's all part of the suggestion. And we are invited to be really mindful we are invited already to be mindful of our thoughts, but on top of it, there's another layer, and that is, where is this thought coming from? Is it really serving the greater good? And in this particular case here with Evelina and Caio, of course, Evelina is more evolved than Caio, and she is giving him some really good thoughts. It's like, is there life after death? And that's a question we may have. Is there, right? And of course, we who've studied Spiritism, we know there is, and that gives us hope. But how many people do not study, do not educate themselves, are very materialistically inclined? And then these questions come up, and then life becomes, I want to say, more complicated when we don't see the bigger picture, right, Carol?
Right, Sunshine. Thank you so much for this beautiful reminders that you're giving us that we can take for immortality. And since you spoke of television, it's a good reminder for us that in God's television, or within our free will, the network of our free will, we can connect to constructive channels or destructive channels. And how do we know? As you said so beautifully, through the nature of our thoughts and feelings. So, according to what you taught us, Sunshine, through Emmanuel, it is important for us to therapeutically analyze where we are, where is our mind, who are we connecting with, and how. We may be wondering, how practically can we do so? Simple therapeutic question or homework or heart work for us, soul work for us. We can take note of the three most common thought patterns that emerge in our minds within a 24-hour period. If we write them on a piece of paper, they become more tangible and visible, literally, and we can classify them as constructive or destructive. If they are destructive by chance, what do? I don't blame myself, but I say, okay, I have free will. It's in my power to switch the channel. So let us all work on switching the channel of our mind's television into God's television. Evelina is helping Caio right now to do this very action, to switch the network of his mind from more disturbed thoughts to God-centered thoughts. So let us observe how Evelina operates to see how we can educate ourselves in our own self-talk, so to speak, so that we may attune with spirit teachers who are always there to support us, right, Sunshine?
Yeah, it's beautiful, Carol. Yes,
Yes,
exactly. Yes.
right. So
It's
let
our
us observe
invitation.
Evelina now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So
And by the
let's.
way, before we continue, let us say hello to some friends that have
Mhm.
joined us. Hello, Mark Carlos. Welcome,
Hello,
friend.
Mark.
And hello, Rihanna. Beautiful light that is
Hello,
always shining in
Rihanna.
South Africa. Thank you for
Yes.
joining us,
Hi,
right?
Rihanna.
Hi. And we also have Gilson Andrade with us and Melissa Delin with us. Thank you, friends, for
Yes.
joining
Hello, friends.
us. Okay, so here comes Evelina. Let us observe her as she constructively nourishes Caio's soul. She says, Caio, what are you doing with your life?
The attorney didn't register the question with his physical eardrums, but he did hear it in the acoustics of his soul. He thought he was talking to himself.
Caio,
Caio.
what are you doing with your life?
He unconsciously repeated his discarnate companion's words in the secret chamber of his consciousness, and realized that time was flying by without him taking stock of himself. How had he been using the treasure of time? What uses had he made of his health and money? What blessings had he spread by means of his academic degree? As a friend, he had murdered a colleague. As a husband, he had even had the courage to be good to his wife, stricken by illness. I think this calls for another pause.
Yes, Sunshine, lead the way, please.
So here's a question that we may want to ask ourselves. What are we doing with our time? What are we doing with our health? What are we doing with our money? What are we doing with our knowledge? Whether it's maybe a college degree or any other way that we have knowledge, what are we doing with it? And that is really, I would say, therapeutic question number 2, right, Carol? It's like going deep and observing.
Yes.
We know
Yes.
that everything we have is a gift from God. So what are we doing with the gifts that we have received from God? First step will be, again, to pull out that piece of paper and making a list. And maybe we would just want to pick 3, the 3 first gifts that come to our minds. First thought, our thought, right? So we put that on our list, and then we see, am I just hogging it? Am I holding on to it? Or am I multiplying the gift? So that would be our first, our second therapeutic question for the day. Because we know.
Yes, I'm writing it
Good.
down
Thank you, Carol.
as you speak.
Yes. So time is one that I want to say we all have. Because we're all born, and I see this picture with a little package, and that's the time that God gives us that we have during our incarnation, and that's called time. For some of us, it's only 10 years, for others, it's 40, and for yet others, it's 100 years. So what do we do with this time? There is a beautiful, beautiful story by Neo Lucio, a spirit, in the book Jesus in the Home. It's called The Divine Talisman. And there, his friends are asking him, asking Jesus, what is your magic? What is going on? And in the end, the answer is, it's a divine talisman that we all have. It's called time. And it's only through time that we can spread light and peace, Jesus tells us in that particular story. And what we need to remember for our own selves is that if we don't share the gifts we receive, which actually Manuel really explains in the chapter of assistance in thought and life, we are blocking our own heart flow. We're blocking our own energy flow. And in the end, it actually might get us sick. It's just like a spring when the water comes flowing through. And as long as the water is running, is moving, it stays clear. However, the minute we stop up the water, it runs the danger of becoming opaque. Disease can come in, germs can come in, and the water is not necessarily clear and clean anymore. And that is the same with the gifts we receive. We constantly receive gifts, and we need to let them flow out to use them for our own service. And if that keeps us healthy and it multiplies the gifts from God, we do the good. And lastly, we need to remember, if we don't, not only does it have an impact on our health, but we also are responsible for the good we omit in doing. And we are responsible for all the evil that results from the good we omit in doing. So Jesus gives us very clear guidelines. He puts the bar really high, and we are invited to stretch to come closer to him. Right, Carol?
Right, Sunshine. Let us all do some stretches right now. Stretches for the soul, beautifully said. Let us all stretch away every day. Thank you, Sunshine, for these beautiful reminders. Shall we continue? Yes. So,
His eyes.
go ahead.
His eyes stumbled involuntarily upon Elisa's funeral ritual, and he asked himself what he might have meant to his dead woman. Quite frankly, he didn't feel good about himself as he recalled how impatiently and harshly he had always treated her, concerned as he was in taking her daughter's love away from her. Acknowledging the appalling judgment of his own conscience, he gazed at Vera, albeit at quite a distance, in order to discern her inner thoughts by the look on her face.
Caio,
Whispered Evelina into the ears of his soul.
think about your responsibilities. It's time for you to legalize your situation with the young woman who has wholly entrusted herself to you.
Still convinced he was talking to himself, Serpa silently reproduced Evelina's comment in his mind, unaware that his discarnate wife was perceiving his answers. Believing it to be only self-talk, he continued the inner monologue. Legalize my situation with Vera? Get married? Why? Yes, he argued. He had promised to marry her, but he wouldn't jump into it without giving it further study. He had already been a man tied to the duties of a husband, and he did not intend to have another relationship full of constraints. Moreover, he considered he was a man with solid experience in the world. In social circles, he had heard many unflattering references to Elisa's daughter, which would not recommend her as a wife. Several young men had denigrated her reputation as a woman. Why should he give his name to such a fickle creature? Shall we pause?
Yes, we shall, Sunshine. Lead the way yet again. Thank you.
Would you like to speak?
No, please.
Oh,
You can speak, Sunshine, please.
yeah. So another question for us that Evelina is bringing up, and that is, how are we fulfilling our responsibilities?
Yes.
Are we fulfilling our duties in life? And there is Emmanuel popping up into our minds again. Beautiful Emmanuel in
Right.
Thought in Life, chapter 21. He talks about duty. That first of all, he defines duty for us, which is sometimes really important because duty has a negative rap. It's getting up in the morning, always doing the same, going to work, and all these going grocery shopping, doing the laundry. So then we start getting bored and yawn. But no, Emmanuel is raising the ceiling for us. He's telling us that duty is actually a series of activities in the realm of goodness. So even when we fulfill our so-called boring duties, we are invited to do the good, to be of service, to spread our gifts. So it is important for us to keep that in mind, to know that we owe our fellow humans to do the good while we fulfill our responsibilities. And if we don't, then we see what happens. We saw it in this book, and we may know it from our own lives. Because the minute we don't fulfill our duties, whether we're conscious of it or not, there's a form of poison that gets dripped into our minds. And what is the poison's name? It's called guilt. It's dripping, dripping, dripping. And then we start feeling negative thoughts. It's like an opening for darkness to come in. And then we've seen it in Ernesto's case when he was incarnated. He wasn't really present as a husband. He ran away. He was always on business trips. We don't want to face the situation where we have not fulfilled our duty, and eventually it will get us sick, because this poison, which then affects our perispirit, it will eventually affect our physical body. So it is extremely important that we continue to fulfill our duties. Alcyone in Renunciation by Emmanuel is a beautiful example of showing us of how important fulfilling our duty is. She's a higher level spirit, and in her dialogues with her beloved Charles, who is a priest, she keeps reminding him, Charles, don't give up your priesthood. You need whatever God gives us, and this is for us again. Whatever duty God gives us is a gift, and we are called to fulfill it. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable it may be. That is our divine duty, right, Carol?
Absolutely, sunshine, right on. And right now, because of the coronavirus, we have an additional opportunity to fulfill our duties because we are being called to be rooted at home. So, this is our beautiful, perhaps the most unique opportunity of this reincarnation thus far for us to fulfill our roles as parent, as father, mother, husband, wife, aunt, uncle, grandmother, grandfather, however we may see ourselves in that family constellation. Right now, we are being blessed with the opportunity to revisit that role and fulfill our moral duty with love, because it is not enough to bring a spirit back into a reincarnation, allowing it to materialize through us. It is not enough to give it a physical body to nourish their physical body. We are being invited by God to embrace the spirits in our family constellation with love. It is love that differentiates duty by itself from a materialistic point of view to duty from a moral or spiritual point of view. So Ernesto, we have seen in this beautiful account, fulfilled his duty perfectly, materialistically speaking. He provided to his family, and so did Caio. Both of them, from a materialistic, physical point of view, fulfilled their duty. But Spiritism, the light of discernment, sheds more understanding into our incarnate roles as immortal spirits. And if we look at life from higher above, as a drone, like Sunshine likes to say, we then see that the differentiator, when we how do we know when we are learning to live as spirits in a human existence, when we do the same duties out of the automatic mode, when we fulfill these duties not because society expects it of us, but because we are learning to love those human beings, those eternal spirits whom God has placed in our lives as gifts. Speaking of talents, we were just speaking of gifts from God. Our family members are not in our constellation by chance. They are gifts from God, and God is inviting us to truly love them. And to truly love them means to not only live with them, not only put up with them, not only provide for them, but actually appreciate their qualities and learn to love them as we love a little flower that is blooming beautifully in all of its stages. So let us learn to see one another as divine flowers from above, and let us learn to admire the divine beauty in each of the spirits that are incarnated around us. And in this way, we will do what Sunshine invited us to do, which is to fulfill our moral duty. What is the denominator, again, that differentiates the thermometer, rather, that tells us if we are fulfilling our moral duty as Sunshine invited us? Love. So let us pause internally and within the realms of our souls. Let us ask ourselves if we are fulfilling our duties with love. If we need to readjust, fabulous, because the coronavirus is giving us the perfect scenario to do so. So if we were having a little trouble finding a blessing in our current situation, there we have it. We now have the opportunity to fulfill our duties with love. Right, sunshine?
Absolutely, Carol. Beautiful.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Shall we continue? And hello, Luni Coniello. Hello,
Hello.
Hipólito. Welcome, dear
Hello.
friends.
Welcome.
Shall we
Right.
continue?
Yes, I'm just
Oh, we
remembering where
were
were
here.
we?
Kaya, who are you to judge? Says
Oh, yeah.
Evelina on page 220. Kaya,
Evelina's mhm.
who are you to judge?
Evelina's question pierced his soul like a burning thought that both softened and frightened him. And as if he were thinking aloud, talking mentally to himself, he continued receiving more exhortations, striking his innermost being like arrows of truth.
Caillou, who are you to judge? Aren't you also burdened with dreadful debts before the law? By what right can you so hastily condemn a young woman deceived by others due to the lack of proper moral support?
Based on these arguments, Serpa continued asking himself, was it fair to continue taking advantage of her now that she was practically alone in the world? If he left her, where would she go? And who was he, Caio Serpa, if not a man reaching middle age and in need of someone's dedication to prevent the train of his life from derailing? He had experienced the entire range of physical pleasures, but how had he profited from it? If he had turned every expression of love into abuse and irresponsibility? What had he reaped from the noisy nightlife, so full of voices but empty of meaning, except weariness and disillusionment? And as far as he could remember, he had never helped anyone. He knew how to be affable as long as the circumstances did not inconvenience him. All it took, however, was one little thing to make him feel uncomfortable, and he would find this or that escape route, which the clear intent of not wanting to be put out. Hadn't the time come to actually help someone, to do something for someone else for a change? At first, bent on winning her over, he had showered Vera with tenderness and love, captivating her full attention. Afterwards, the satiety of those who no longer love after the flame of desire has gone out in their physical appeal. But he could not deny the fact that the young woman had given him her highest expressions of trust. Vera Selina had surrendered to him completely, and in the end she had not hesitated to humiliate her own mother in order to transfer all her assets to him. Serpa registered all of this, all of his discarnate wife's arguments in the fashion of a lamp that thinks itself its own source of light, unaware that it reaches it from a power plant.
Wow.
Yeah. Once again, we are being asked by Evelina, by wise Evelina, with another question. She's asking us, who are you to judge?
Mm-hmm.
Now we may say, well, Sunshine, I'm not judging, I'm just listening. Well, I'm sure there have been times in our lives where we have judged, right? And we're reminded, of course, of Jesus, our guide and model, who taught us that only those who've never sinned may cast the first stone. So if we go back in our consciousness, and even if we can't come up with anything in this lifetime, there are other lifetimes before, so we have cast stones before, which reminds us not to judge unnecessarily. Now, in the Gospel, according to Spiritism, we find a distinction of judgment, which I think is important to note, because out of judgment can come discredit. We can't discredit other people, put them down. It would add a maliciousness to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because we want to feel better, and so we put someone down by criticizing them. And we may do that speaking up, but we also may do that in thought, which is really equally reprimandable in a way, because even we know that thought is life. So every thought creates an image, and if we have negative thoughts, it's like mental darts going into the direction where those thoughts are headed for. So this is really important for us to note whether we are, because we may say, oh no, I'm not saying anything, I'm good, but what's going on up here, right? So the first one is discredit. But there's another form of judgment, and that is like more of a reprimand of evil, or what should we say, ignorance. And that could potentially actually lead to goodness if we discern our judgments, right? If we need to look at every situation. Is it really correct to reprimand, to facilitate changes? And again, it's just like with our thoughts, we need to see, is the person who is doing XYZ that appears harmful to me only affecting this person, or is it actually affecting others? So that will be one guideline for us to see. The minute it affects others, it is more important to potentially say something, to express something, because we have to remind ourselves that we are liable also for all the good we omitted in doing, right? And all the evil that came from that. So to hold back unnecessarily would not necessarily be the right response. So it's something for us to ponder, right? That there is two different ways of judging, but most often we just have judgments and they are just coming from our own selves. We're pointing the finger and we omit that we don't recognize that three fingers are pointing back at us. So to turn it around and look at our own selves, where the judgment comes from, would be a very therapeutic moment. And I want to say one thing that I love so much, it is of course from Chico Xavier, which gives us beautiful guidance. And he said, and it's translated, and I'm sure you recognize it in Portuguese, whoever speaks it. To others, I give the right to be as they are. To myself, I give the duty to be better every day. And
Wow, I
that,
want to write this down
is
right
it
now,
beautiful?
Sunshine.
Because Chico
That is
Xavier
so beautiful.
gives us the direction of our judgments. So if we really have to judge, let's start right here, right? Let's just
Yes.
start always right here and then go take the next step. Right,
Yes.
Carol?
Right on. I'm just writing Chico Xavier's quote down. To others, I give the right to be
As
who
they are.
as they are.
To myself, I give the duty to be
To
better.
myself, I give the duty
to be better every day.
to
And
be
that is
better
every
every day.
day.
Wow.
And you spoke to it, Carol. You mentioned the moral duty, right? So there it is. It's our moral duty to be a better every day, to be
So
more busy
beautiful.
with us to improve ourselves in the
Yes,
outside world.
so beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thank you
Chico
for
Xavier.
sharing. Thank you, Chico Xavier.
Yeah.
And we could add a little tiny something to it because Chico Xavier loved roses.
Mm-hmm.
That gave me the idea of a therapeutic exercise for us in honor of Chico Xavier, who loved roses so much. Before we think about throwing a stone onto someone else, why don't we visualize that stone turning into a rose? Because thought is power. And instead of focusing on the thorns, we focus on the perfume. There is an account shared with all of us by Geraldo Lemos Neto, who spent decades side by side with Chico Xavier, that Chico Xavier loved giving roses to the people around him, and he often asked people to help him take the thorns, strip the roses of the thorns, so that people would just be gifted with beauty, love, and harmony. So why don't we do the same exercise inspired by the beautiful missionary spirit Chico Xavier? When we feel as though we are about to throw a vibratory stone onto someone, let us visualize it transforming into a rose, and inspired by Chico, let us strip it of the thorns and give the perfume of love, beauty, and harmony. After all, Joana de Angelis says that flowers are the signature of God. Right, Sunshine? Thank you
So
for
beautiful.
inspiring us. Thank you,
Oh,
Chico
thank you for
Xavier.
that.
Right?
Yes, that is beautiful. I will definitely do that.
Yes, we all.
Yes.
Let us spread more flowers around. The world will look all the more beautiful this way. Right,
Can you
Sunshine?
imagine?
Yes, we can create a thoughtless life, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Let
Thank
us
you, Carol.
continue then.
Yes.
Uh,
Um,
he tried to counter argue on page 221. Caio is a
mhm.
bit stubborn. He tried to counter argue. What did he say, Sunshine?
Get married? Tie myself down? Why? Don't I enjoy all the pleasures of a married man? Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without the chains of marriage? Evelina's voice once again resounded in his mind.
Yes, you are the strongest element in this relationship, but how can you protect yourself from temptations in the future? How can you keep yourself from your own philandering tendencies, if not by giving her the gentler element that looks up to you, the necessary peace of mind to enable it to work for you? Do you think you are free of the irresponsible inclinations so characteristic of your love life? Wouldn't it be better for you to guarantee her peace of mind and preserve your own by bringing some structure to your life? Think about it. Imagine yourself in front of your own mother. For nearly all men seek in their spouses the maternal support that adulthood stole from their childhood. Would you respect a man, in this case your own father, who trampled on the deepest yearnings of her heart? Wouldn't she be more deserving of your support and love if you saw her ill-treated, abandoned, and forgotten by the one to whom she so trustingly gave herself? Why do you delve into the past to revile the woman you love, when in fact it makes her someone more in need of your understanding and protection?
Shall we pause?
Yeah, sure.
Lead the way, Carol.
Yes, it's so beautiful, Sunshine. How, and everyone, how Evelina is bringing up the adult in Caio. She truly loves him because she's not sugarcoating it for Caio. She's not saying, poor baby, I understand you. You have been through a lot to do whatever makes you happy. No, she's looking at him as an immortal spirit, bringing up the best in him. So, this is a guidepost for our relationships as well. Do we look at our partners and loved ones as adults? Are we able to tell them the truth with kindness, thinking of our responsibility before their own spiritual growth? Or are we spoiling our loved ones? Because to spoil our loved ones is not to love them. To love them is to look at them as eternal spirits and to ask ourselves every day, how may I collaborate with this spirit in their eternal growth? This is exactly what Evelina is modeling to us. She's not sugarcoating, she's not nurturing, she's not pushing Kyle further into the pathway that he's comfortable with. She's actually leading them out of his comfort zone, which is beautiful, and she's calling them upon taking eternal responsibility for his actions. So, good thermometers for us in relationships are we helping our loved ones to cultivate eternal qualities? Number one. Number two, are we helping them to get out of their comfort zone? Number three, are we motivating them to serve others, help others by example? Because this is what Evelina is asking, that Kyle, for the first time in his life, thinks of others. So, three guideposts for us in relationships. Are we looking at our loved ones as eternal spirits? Are we helping them to get out of their comfort zone? Are we helping them to see that we are all incarnated to serve? Three guideposts for us. Thank you, Evelina.
Yeah.
Right, sunshine?
Beautiful, Carol. Yes. Let us ask that.
Shall we continue?
Yes.
Yes?
After these admonitions, the former Mrs. Serpa switched to thoughts of optimism and hope.
Think about it, Kyle. Vera didn't merely entrust you with material resources for you to look after. You have considerable material assets with which to build a family. Consider the blessings of the future. Listen to me, whether or not you believe in God and the soul survivals after death, you have been burdened with a serious problem waiting on your mind. Remorse for the murder you committed and the memory of Tullio Mancini. Stricken by your hands, you try to escape by indulging in pleasures that do not lessen your pain, and you try in vain to block out the bitter memories that constantly assail you. To be a father, to raise beloved children, wouldn't that be the highest reward for you on the earth? Your marriage to Vera will legally invest you with resources to be valued and increased, guaranteeing safety and comfort, happiness and education for your future children. A home, Kyle, a home where you can rest, renew yourself, forget. Children in whom you can see yourself, and the company of Vera, whose presence will remind you of your mother's watch and care.
Yeah.
Wow, how beautiful. Shall we move forward and go to page 223, where Caio approaches her being Vera, and gently takes her by the arm, and with the purpose of affirming his intention in front of those present, he said to her,
Go ahead.
"Oh, you want me to be Kyle?
Yeah.
Don't cry anymore, Vera. You're not alone. Tomorrow we'll go get the documents we need and get married as soon as we can."
Beautiful, huh?
Beautiful, lovely.
Evelina was successful in turning him around and opening
Yes,
his heart and mind to
yes.
bring hope into his feelings, right? It's really hope. Hope opened him up. So he would say, yes, there is actually more to life. And he asked her to get married. Hope as the divine stimulus for progress. Hope that helps us when we're realizing we've done wrong, that Kayo is doing as well, but also we, that there
Mhm.
is always law of progress, there's always another chance. Divine providence is always there to help us take the next step with loving care so we can become better children of God.
So
And
be
Kayo
it.
is doing it, right?
So be
Yes.
it. Yes, it's beautiful how life grants us more and more opportunities to love. So, just one little therapeutic question for us. How much do we see the opportunities that life is granting us to love? Let us think about it. 0 to 10. 0. Oh, oops, don't see it yet. 10. I see it all the time. Let's train our spiritual minds, our spirit minds to look for love, right, Sunshine?
Yes, always.
Yes, it's
Love
good for
always.
Caio that he's learning.
Kayo is
Beautiful.
us, right?
Yeah,
Kayo is us.
Caio is
We're
definitely
learning.
yes, definitely yes. So on page 224, Andrea Lewis says another important step had just been taken towards a better future. Would you like to continue,
Mhm.
Sunshine?
Caio and Vera would build a home with divine support. Giulio Mancini would return to the earth as the son of the man who had taken his life, thereby satisfying the law of love that orders hatred and revenge to be banished forever from the work of God. Later on, Elisa would join them as a beloved daughter. Caio would feel comforted and would surely become a different man, as he saw himself living on in happy posterity under the loving eye of Vera, who loved him ardently. Evelina pondered all this in tears of joy. She continued to love her former spouse, but on a different level, and with all her heart she thanked the Lord for Vera Selina, whom she had come to love and respect during her work of assistance, and whose help she could never repay. In a rapture of joy, Evelina ran towards the engaged couple, and before Serpa got in the car with Vera, she embraced him with gratitude, shouting for the first time into his mind with the celestial emotion of love purified through the fires of suffering.
Caio, dearest Caio, be happy and may God bless you.
Then, leaning towards Vera, she kissed her hand with infinite tenderness. The car started back. Evelina and Ernesto remained in prayer for a long time in the peaceful sanctuary of death, which for them had become a place of joy and understanding. High above, the first stars were beginning to twinkle in the forest of the night, like lanterns of fire and silver, illuminating the pathway to God in the deep blue sky.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful, so
Gives
poetic,
me
so
goosebumps.
amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing to see God's love in action in
Mhm.
all aspects, and it's beautiful to realize that Evelina is being taught, just like us, to love one another in an eternal level, which is outside of the temporary positions that we take in life. So let us practice this in the next 24 hours, looking at our loved ones as children of God, shall we?
Yes, we will.
Yes.
Thank you for the invitation, Carol. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sunshine, for sharing so much of your divine light with us.
You're welcome.
Shall we do a closing prayer?
Yes, would you
Yeah,
like to do that, Carol?
please. Thank you, Sunshine, for inviting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, dear friends, in gratitude to the never-ending source of love that guides our lives throughout eternity, let us close our eyes if we can and join hearts in admiring the beauty of God's harmonic creation. Let us visualize a ray of the sun bathing us, entering our homes, illuminating every one of the rooms in our homes, coming closer to us and taking gently a human form. We see a beautiful man with a gentle and loving gaze, looking at us with the most serene smile. With his arms wide open, he invites us all for a beautiful embrace, and with tears in our eyes, we recognize that it is the very Master that is before us. We then say, "Thank you, Master, for loving us so much to the point of endorsing yet another reincarnation for each and every one of us. Thank you also on behalf of the discarnate spirits that learn together with us and inspire us in your name. Thank you for showing us time and again, Divine Master, that life does go on and that the purpose of life in whatever dimension of the universe is to love. We thank you, Master, for your unconditional love for each and every one of us. Symbolically, we place ourselves at your feet and we pray so that in your humble greatness you may also embrace the earth at this time. And we pray so that the same light that surrounds us also surrounds every spirit preparing to reincarnate at this time. Every spirit returning to the spiritual realm. Every spirit who embraced medicine as their line of credit before you. Every spirit who is struggling to find the good in the current times. Every spirit who, through physical illness, is learning to cultivate eternal health. Every spirit who sees their physical life ending, but a new life beginning. Every spirit who inspire all of us to do the good. We say thank you. And we also pray for the spiritual healing of our earthly home and for all of its current leaders, incarnate and discarnate alike, to receive a rose of peace from your loving hands, so that their mission to serve and love God prevails above it all. On our end, we continue to thank you, Master, for the gift of your light in our lives and hearts. And all we ask is that each of us have the honor of becoming a little speckle of your divine light. And so be it.
And so be it. Thank
Thank
you, Carol. What
you.
a beautiful
Goodbye.
prayer. Touches our
Yes.
hearts.
Our encounter with Jesus, the
Yes,
Master,
thank you.
constantly loves us. Thank you,
Yes,
sunshine, for
yes.
always shining from coast to coast and
Host.
teaching us so much. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Carol. And we'll see everyone, so God willing, tomorrow at the same time, same place for the last chapter of Thought and Life, which is chapter 26.
Of life goes on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so obsessed with Thought
My
and Life.
life will come back for sure, but tomorrow we're here for life goes on, right,
Thank you,
sunshine?
Carol.
Thank you,
Yes.
sunshine. Thank you, dear friends. Bye, Hercules. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
the gift
you.
of your presence. Beautiful
Yes.
children of God.
Amen.
Let us keep
Thank you.
feeling God's blessings. And tomorrow, as Sunshine said, we will be here for our last chapter. Many blessings, friends. Mwah! Bye.
Bye.